Hello, everybody. It is Sunday night in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, assistant sports editor for multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Joined last minute by Noah Hiles. Paul Zeiss had something not great in the press box tonight, so he's not feeling well. We hope he gets better soon. So Noah is being a soldier for us tonight, hopping in on our Steelers postgame show presented by FanDuel. We're going to be getting into this Steelers 35-25 loss to the Green Bay Packers. A lot of encouraging things at times, but I think obviously more discouraging things in terms of how the final result played out. Noah, before we dig too far into the details, just your general reaction here to what we witnessed on what was supposed to be a big night at Acrisure Stadium with the throwback uniforms.
Yeah, I guess the top word I would use would be disappointing. Like you said, this could have been a really cool night. It was, I think, as a writer, you look at storylines, I think this is probably the best storyline game of the NFL calendar so far. I was downtown. I was on the North Shore hanging out with friends before the game started. I was excited to watch this game, and I thought the first half went the Steelers' way. I mean, they were great on third down defensively. The offense moved the ball. But as the game progressed, the better team won. And we're going to get into all of that here soon.
Yeah, we'll get into the nitty-gritty here in a second. Before we do, just want to thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Pella Windows and Doors. There's no better place to get new windows and doors installed in your home than Pella, who can help you save on energy costs year-round. Schedule a free in-home consultation with your local Pella Windows and Doors to find the right product for your home and budget. Give them a call at 866-593-1560 to discuss your project further. That's 866-593-1560 to get started planning on your new windows and doors installation with Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. No, let's start with the defense. I'm always trying to figure out for these post-game shows, do I start talking offense? Do I start talking defense? What is the headline here? I think, again, tonight, it was the defense breaking down against Jordan Love in this game. It was timely at times. You mentioned in the first half, all those third down stops that made you feel good about the direction things were going. But you look down at the stat sheet with Jordan Love at halftime, you still said, man, he's piling them up here a little bit. And then he just kind of hit turbo there at the end, finishes statistically 29 of 37, 360 yards, 9.7 yards per attempt, the 3 touchdowns, a passer rating of 134.2. In the end, Noah, I think it was way more bad than good when you give up. Usually when you give up a passing number that big, it's because the guy was playing from behind and, piling up numbers. Not the case tonight. He just diced them.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the stat sheet. As you were talking, I looked, 10 different Packers with at least one reception. So this wasn't a case like their last game, right, where one pass catcher, they just didn't have an answer for him. He kept getting open. And, that pass catcher, Jamar Chase, is the best in the league at what he does. And sometimes you get got. Everyone on this Packers offense really contributed here. Kraft was obviously the main culprit with the 143 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they got everyone involved, and it just goes to show how schematically overmatched they were. And I think my biggest takeaway from this game is probably a little deeper than that. But just on the surface, they even when Green Bay wasn't getting in the end zone, like I even just said, hey, the first half was fine, right? They only held them to 7 points. They were great on third down, but a lot of those third down conversions was kind of like self-imposed errors on Green Bay's end, and they missed 2 field goals in the first half as well. So, and I don't think either of those kicks were unreasonable distances. So I don't know. It might have been like a fool's gold first half. They just weren't good, and they haven't been good all year, Adam.
Well, I think our friend Christopher Carter noted on Twitter that, they were covering in the first half. Chris Collinsworth was talking about it on the broadcast. The man-to-man was working, and when the man-to-man was working, the rush had a chance to get in there, be disruptive. Maybe not on every play, but enough on those third downs to get the Packers off the field. So that's why it was working. I think that's why it wasn't later. They were just flat getting beat, much as they did in Cincinnati. The man coverage wasn't working. The zone coverage wasn't working. And when neither of those things are working for a team in the same game, this is the result.
Yeah, and I want to dig a little deeper onto this. I think today's loss, and I think you can make the argument that this has been the case for a while with this team, but specifically today, I think it really just shows how bad they've been at evaluating their own talent on this roster, right? They talked about on the broadcast how this offseason, the priority was to go get guys who could play in man coverage because they felt confident that they had pass rushers, guys who could get after the quarterback. And I mean, just look at this game and look at this season. I mean, they've got after the quarterback a decent amount, especially in the first couple of games, but recently the pressure has been non-existent and the secondary's been a mess all year. So the guys that they evaluated to bring in weren't as good as they thought. The guys that they just paid at the beginning of this season who demanded more money from the team have regressed. The guys that they've banked on using high draft picks on in the recent years haven't been the players that they needed them to be. I mean, they've been off with a lot of personnel decisions. And when you match that with very, I think, minimal scheme, right? It's not like what they're doing is rocket science. It's you've heard other players say this before from other teams. They kind of run the same stuff they've ran for a while, like years and years and years. And it works when you have dudes out there. But when 90 doesn't play like a dude, and 97 doesn't play like a dude, and 5 doesn't play like a dude, you're up Blank Creek without a paddle. And that's what happened today, especially in the second half.
No, how much do you fault that front seven? Because I think they showed the AWS package there that they always do about time to throw. And Love was getting them out quick, and he was going to his checkdowns quickly. And I think that's where he tore them up for a ton of yards, where he looked downfield. If it wasn't there in the first second and a half, he was snapping it off to the running back, snapping it off to a tight end, someone in the horizontal passing game there, and they just ate there for a good chunk of the first half, and then various points later on. So did the coverage give the pass rush a chance to get home, or do you look at these guys now 2 weeks in a row, no sacks, and say you got to do better in 120 minutes of football?
I mean, I do think there were points where the pass rush was fine. Like the stat sheet would disagree with that assessment, but there were a couple of parts in this game where they were on Love. Like there was the one play where Queen went right up the middle and hit him, and it was just a good throw, but the coverage was just never there. The coverage was never there, and that's, I think, the bigger problem. Like if you're looking at this roster, because I mean, you don't want to super overreact to one game, right? They've still got 10 more on the schedule, and who knows what's going to happen in those 10. But when you're assessing the defense through 7 games now, I feel a lot better about the pass rush being able to pick itself up and be better than the secondary. I don't have any faith that the secondary can improve. The only way this defense is going to improve as a collective whole is if the pass rush carries it. And that wasn't supposed to be the plan this year. I mean, the pass rush was supposed to be good, like it's always been, but it wasn't supposed to be the only thing it has to offer. And if this defense is going to be even league average when we get to January, it's going to be because the pass rush carries it. Because I don't see how this secondary improves. It's old, it's hurt, and it's just they don't have anything that you can really rely on. Like if you really, and I don't want to say if you really grind the tape, because I'll be honest, I haven't sat down and grinded the tape. I'm coming in here out of the bullpen, just called up from AAA. So I wasn't super prepared to break down all the X's and O's, but just casually watching the game and just reading our coverage and following along. I mean, man has been an issue for this team, and zone has been an issue for this team. So if you can't cover on either of those fronts, you better hope your guys get home. And they haven't got home consistently enough, and that's why you see results like you see today.
No, I mean, they've taken a market step back. A year ago, we weren't talking about the secondary quite this much. It was a question of, they weren't able to compensate for where the pass rush was falling short, especially up the middle. That's why they go out and get Derrick Harmon. Now it's a matter of the pass rush isn't getting the time that they need to do their work. And listen, we've seen them do it. They get 6 sacks in Ireland against the Vikings. They had 6 sacks. What was that other game that they won? But they had 12 in 2 games, and now they have none in 2 games.
Yeah.
And that's your 4-game span. And it just so happens, well, you're facing these solid receivers, and that's kind of the way it goes. And it seems like it's become a reverse of the problems that they had last year. And I think they talked about this a little bit on the North Shore Drive this week. I think Chris and Brian did their Saturday show, and they said, did they focus too much on stopping the run such that now things have fallen apart in the passing game?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's so much to fix here. And that's not even ignoring. We still got to get to the offense, which has its flaws. I don't think the offense is anywhere near as big of a problem, but there's still so much that needs to be better there too. But defensively, I mean, that's supposed to be the identity of this team. That's why they hired Arthur Smith. They didn't go out and get an OC who's going to light up the scoreboard. They wanted an OC whose scheme fits with a defense-first mentality. That's how this team is built to win games, or it's supposedly built to win games. It's why they invest so much in the defense, and I don't want to just come on here and hammer all the cliches that we hear, but sometimes cliches are cliches because they make a lot of sense. This team is supposed to win games by its defense, and it can't because it's not good enough. Its best players aren't playing good enough, and its young players who they've needed to take a step forward just aren't. And you could talk about scheme, you could talk about this and that, and I think it starts with the head coach, and then you look at the rest of the coaching staff, you maybe even look at the front office. Everything that they've banked on to go right has not gone right on this side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think we talked about the secondary being old, and every time Mike Tomlin gets asked about these guys that they bring in, he talks about the resume and he talks about what this guy has done in his career. And that's great. But how many of these guys are they going to bring in that the first, second, third lines of their football obituary are what's already happened and not what's going to happen? And I think that's a big culprit, is that there's a lot of credentialism that has gone on, particularly in this secondary in the last handful of years. You go back to Patrick Peterson, and none of them have really delivered on that. And you wonder when they're going to get the message there. Noah, one other thing I wanted to say on defense, DeShon Elliott looks like he is out for a while.
You're right.
Crying coming off the field. What kind of loss is he for this defense? He's been very good at times this season. He's been not great at others. I think maybe he's been one of the more consistent members of that secondary.
Right.
Which is, I think it's going to be a big loss for them. Listen, he's not a perfect player, hasn't had a perfect season, but there's a reason they extended him, and he has had some solid performances this year.
I'm going to look back and wonder, maybe the Minka trade wasn't such a good idea, right? Because, I feel like safety's been a spot where they've been thin at. Like, that's the one spot I think more than anywhere else on this defense where one injury can really, really mess up a lot of stuff. That's a guy they can't afford to lose. And I don't want to speculate on his injury. Like, I'm sure we'll get some sort of report here in the next, hour or so, or maybe tomorrow morning on what his status is. But yeah, they can't. That's the other funny part about it. Not funny that anyone's injured, but as bad as these guys are playing, there's no depth behind them either. Like, and in the secondary, really, aside from pass rusher, they don't have a lot. Everyone's underperforming, and there's no one to push them for playing time either. So they're in a tough spot. I don't know, but yeah, like I'm seeing in the comments here, like that. And I don't think Minka was amazing over these past couple of years, but maybe he was underappreciated because we're seeing what he could have provided that maybe they're missing. I don't know.
Yeah, I still don't super have a problem with the structural idea of you don't want to be paying a safety that much money in today's NFL. You'd rather invest it in a cornerback.
You have to get a cornerback that can play.
Yes, that's the problem. It was not so much the giving up Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's that Jalen Ramsey has not been the guy in the secondary that they wanted him to be, and that's where the fail of that move was to me. And now you're really going to test your ability to go out and find these budget safeties if, in fact, we're not going to see DeShon Elliott for a period of time. you're basically bringing in guys like they did with Jabril Peppers a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Jabril Peppers is probably going to get more time, and you're probably going to be talking about someone else coming off the street to handle this situation. So we will continue to monitor that. We're going to talk offense on the other side of this break. I want to thank another couple of sponsors here. Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci are Pittsburgh's mesothelioma and asbestos attorneys, standing up for victims of mesothelioma and asbestos cancers. With over 85 years of experience, they know how to uncover the truth. They have the experience you need, the commitment your family deserves. They've recovered millions for individuals affected by mesothelioma and other cancers due to asbestos exposures. Call them toll-free at 1-877-227-6558 or visit them online at sdklaw.com. We also want to thank FanDuel. They're our presenting sponsor for the show. Head over to the FanDuel app. Check out the updated betting futures in the AFC North. I'm pretty sure now the Steelers are going to be underdogs to the Ravens once again. It was neck and neck all week in that futures market. So with this loss and the Ravens win today, you can expect that the Steelers are going to be maybe getting significant plus money again there. So if you're somehow optimistic after tonight, maybe you want to check out our friends at FanDuel for a wager there. Let's talk about the offense, Noah. What can you say about this group tonight? I think there were some big plays. You get that big throw to Roman Wilson early. They got him involved tonight. The running game was fairly efficient, even though it didn't pile up big numbers. I think they averaged 5.2 on the ground, according to my box score here. Pretty good. Pass protection wasn't great, and you faltered in. Again, you were bad situation. The defense was good situationally at times tonight. The offense was bad situationally, even though they were moving the ball at different times.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the offense wasn't like the worst thing in the world. They moved the ball, but their inability to finish drives kills them, especially with how poorly the defense plays. And that's been the Tomlin special on how they win games for the last decade. It's just they field goal teams to death. They have an amazing kicker, and he was great again today. But when your defense is going to get carved up every weekend, you can't rely on 3 points. 3 points don't win you games in the NFL anymore. That's just not the recipe. That's why you see so many teams go for it on fourth down now. That's why you see so many teams just be so much more analytically driven and aggressive, because the field goal it's like kind of like the layup in basketball or the mid-range jumper. It's just not a smart thing to bank on if you're trying to win consistently. And that's kind of what plagued them today. And obviously they don't want to kick field goals. They're not going into drives saying, hey, let's just try to get a field goal here, but not converting on third down. And I really think they fell out of sync. There was that one possession in the third quarter that resulted in their last field goal of the game, where they had to call the timeout. It was where Rodgers, they said it was a fumble, and then they reviewed it and it was the incomplete pass. But that like one series, it just seemed like that was a shifting point offensively where they weren't on the same page. The bubble screen, the next play, I believe it was Austin, was overthrown and he like bobbled it, and then there was a sack or something. Like it just seemed like every play they kind of fell out of sync, and the Packers adjusted and they didn't really know how to account for it. So it's a tough look, but it's hard to blame the offense, because at the end of the day, you're going to look at that stat sheet, and I know that some of those points were scored in garbage time, and the game was essentially over when Gainwell fumbled. But I don't know. I don't think they were the reason they lost today. I think they have a lot to clean up. But like you pointed out, Adam, I mean, they ran the football fine. They just got to a point in the game where they couldn't run the football anymore. It just didn't make sense for them. I think it's still blatantly clear that they only have one wide receiver they can consistently throw the ball to. And other teams are starting to figure that out. And it's getting harder and harder to get number 4 the ball, especially in the second half of football games.
No, I think what I'm noticing is that this offense is definitely improved. They've made progress from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, with the Kenny Pickett experiment with Russell Wilson from a year ago, even though like now they're worse off record-wise than they were a year ago, like comfortably. It feels like they've made improvements, but they haven't gotten better enough to compensate for how much worse the defense has gotten. So I don't like Is it not the offense's fault? I don't know. They thought they were violently inconsistent tonight. And that's got to improve if you're going to compensate for this defense. So it's a difficult question for me. The bar is so low with this offense compared to where it is for the defense that they're meeting lower expectations. Mm-hmm. But if this is going to be a playoff team, they've got to do better than just exceeding those expectations.
I totally agree with that. But like you said, like I feel like the defense from week 1 to now has not improved. The offense has. Like that's the thing. Like you're going to look at this box score and you're going to say this was probably not that, like this is like a C grade. If I had to give the offense a letter grade, I'd probably give it a C. And when you look at, whatever Rodgers threw for here, I have it on my phone right now. He threw for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Warren, 4.8 yards a carry. Gainwell, 6.2 yards a carry. I mean, as an offense, 5.2 yards a carry. Like they ran the ball decently. I mean, they were not by any means good enough, but they're getting better. But like you pointed out, like it doesn't matter. They're not progressing at a rate that's going to match, like what you just said, Adam. It's going to match the problems defensively. And it's ironic because it feels like this is the opposite conversation that everyone in this town has been having since COVID, really, right? That was the last time where there's like a balanced football team in this town. And the last couple of years, really since 2020, it's been the defense that's carried the way, and the defense wasn't able to probably maximize or reach its peak potential because of how bad the offense was and not being able to extend drives and do these things that the team was built to kind of win on. And now the offense is doing that. Like, I think that this offense is playing at a level that this is how it was kind of built when they were putting this team together, when they had Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback and Calvin Austin as the number 2 wide receiver. There's a reason why they have all these tight ends and all these running backs. It's because this is a team that's built to have long drives, to keep the offense on the field, to keep the defense fresh so they can cause havoc when they're out there and create these splash plays. And when you're asking them to play anything more than that, that's a problem because that's not what they're built to do. So again, I think the offense is fine for what it's supposed to be, but it needs to be more than that. And I don't know if you can ask an offense with this personnel to do that. I mean, it's a young offensive line. It's a very underwhelming receiving group. It's got a good tight end room, I'll tell you that. It's got a couple of third down backs who are now cosplaying as a starting duo. So, and a 42-year-old quarterback who, for the most part, has been the bright spot on this team this year.
No, I did want to bring up one receiver who did have a nice night, I think, especially he's been invisible for much of the season, but he's made a couple of catches the last couple of games, and tonight Roman Wilson goes off for 74 yards on his 4 receptions, gets the garbage time touchdown. What's your level of optimism there? Because I think you could make the argument that we've seen efforts like this from Calvin Austin for years, and those guys are very much cut from similar cloths. Do we feel like we're on the upswing here with Roman Wilson, who showed some signs in the preseason and then dealt with the injury that kind of slowed him down, or are you going to have to see it on a more consistent basis to believe here?
Yeah, I mean, it's an upswing for his standards because he hasn't ever done anything in the NFL. And I'm not talking down on the guy. I mean, he's still really young. We don't know what Roman Wilson's going to be yet. But this was his first good game in the NFL. There are a lot of receivers who had a first good game in the NFL. Some of them are able to have a second and a third and a fourth good game and so on and so forth. Or other guys, I mean, there have been plenty Steelers receivers where we thought Sammy Coates was going to be something special, or Limas Sweed, or whoever else. And there are some guys who, take a little bit of time to get going and find their spot on the team and find out what plays in the playbook work for them. And maybe that will be Roman Wilson. The Steelers certainly should hope so. I mean, they can't waste. He was a 3rd-round pick, right? You can't waste that type of asset on being essentially a Calvin Austin 2.0. Those guys are fine if they're your number 4 and number 5 receivers, or even your number 3 and number 4. But neither of those guys right now, I think, have shown anything for you to believe that they're a true number 2 on an NFL playoff team. unless if the playoff team has an elite defense, which, as we've established for the first however many minutes of the show, this team does not have. So, yeah, Roman Wilson had a good game. I think that's all we can say right now. I wouldn't say this is some breakout party until his performances later in the season allow us to say that. So we'll see. I mean, but like I said, the Steelers should, not the Pirates, the Steelers should certainly hope that this is something that he can build on and get better from.
Noah, conversely, kind of a night that we saw the frustration come out for DK Metcalf for the first time in a Steelers uniform. 4 catches, 55 yards, targeted 7 times. He kind of had to fight for it tonight, and then we saw him late in the game take the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. That mattered. I mean, it didn't matter. Okay, it went from 3rd and 2 to 3rd and 17. They were still within a possession, I believe, at that point. So that's a pretty significant meltdown from him in hindsight. Are you concerned about him maybe starting to get frustrated a little bit and starting to see what it's like to be the number 1 receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers? So are you concerned for him on that level, or are you concerned that defenses are able to just stack things his direction the less and less these other guys? Yeah, you had Roman Wilson do it tonight, but the tight ends were basically uninvolved, and that allowed them to really focus on DK Metcalf.
I'm not really concerned about, I mean, I want Metcalf to be pissed off. He should be, right? All these guys should be. I mean, I don't think it should be to the point of, trying to poke someone in the eye and costing your team 15 yards. But no, I think that DK Metcalf, in my opinion, I mean, his numbers on paper have been underwhelming, I guess. But at the same time, he's really your only person, your only threat 10 yards or further down the field. At all. So, I mean, what can you really expect from a guy to do this, especially when your offense isn't as dependent on the moon ball? I'm sorry to give some, sorry to say a trigger word to some Steelers fans watching, but I don't know. I mean, they need help at that position, and they've needed help at that position for a while. And it's kind of crazy to say because, I mean, I'm 30. And for most of my life, wide receiver was the least of the Steelers' issues. But it feels like they haven't drafted a good one in quite some time. Or, I mean, they drafted talented ones, but none of them really ended up being the player in Pittsburgh that a lot of them should have been for one reason or another. And now you're looking at Calvin Austin probably being asked to do too much that he's probably not capable of. Roman Wilson, we'll see if he can handle this demand. I mean, so far, those two haven't been able to be a true number 2. And when you don't have that and they take the tight ends away, yeah, you're going to stack up on DK Metcalf. And that's not DK Metcalf's problem. It's a DK Metcalf problem.
It is his problem. Yeah.
It is his problem, but like, that's not his, it shouldn't be on him to find the solution there, is I guess what I'm saying. Like,
yes, I agree.
They got to give him someone else to run routes with. Everything that we worried about in that sense is coming to fruition. On the defensive side of the ball, it was things that we didn't really worry about, I don't think, heading into the year. Where offensively, I think this has been the offense we expected it to be, probably a little better. But when you fall into these situations where you can't rely on field goals and you have to score 30 plus points a game. This is an offense, like I said earlier in the show, this team's just not built to win games that way.
No, I want to get you out of here on this. Not a great night, I don't think, for the pass protection in the end. No. Yes, I think late in the game they were put in some of those obvious passing downs. It gets a little tougher there. But still, I think throughout the night they were a little leaky. What was it? 3 sacks in the end. And it wasn't even just the sacks. No, it was Micah Parsons getting free on that same blitz, and we're just freeing up his other guys because the Steelers had to kind of collapse on him. Chris Collinsworth called it out late in the game. Not a great night for them performance-wise, and then you potentially lose Isaac Seumalo. I think it was deemed a pec injury. We know those can be pesky for especially for an offensive lineman who relies so much on the upper half. What's your concern level from what you saw from that group tonight, especially if Seumalo has to miss time?
I mean, yeah, he'll be a huge loss. But I mean, overall, I mean, I don't know. They weren't great, but I don't think they were the reason they lost, and I don't think they really held the offense back a ton. I mean, they didn't play well, but I'm not the Sayamalu injury is my biggest concern for that group. I didn't see anything. I mean, yeah, Micah Parsons did what Micah Parsons does, and I mean, Green Bay has just a good pass rush in general. I feel like, right? So that's just going to happen. But at the same time, yeah, like the offensive line, I mean, it's young. And like I said, with other elements of the offense, it was probably asked to do things that it's not ready to do yet.
Any final thoughts? No, listen, people tune in late. So we always like to say the defense is bad. If you just tuned in for we
talked about the defense.
We talked about the defense. When we wrap up the show here in a couple of minutes, we'll be on replay. If you want to hear our defense conversation, replay this. We talked about them plenty. We're not blaming this all on the offense, but got to talk about the offense as well. Can't just talk about the things that went wrong. So, Noah, thank you for joining me. Pinch hitting here for Paul Zeiss. I know some of you were asking where he was. Paul was not feeling well late this evening in the press box, had to run home. So we appreciate Noah so much for jumping in, spending the time with us. Any final words there, Noah, or are you ready to go?
Oh, yeah, I just want to reiterate for the people who have tuned in later. I think that this loss and I think this season so far is the big takeaway for me is that they did not do a good job of identifying personnel in this offseason. A lot of the players that they invested in through the draft, through free agency, through trades, they have not performed to the level that they needed them to perform, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And that's why, they're 4-3 right now and looking to be on the verge of wasting a very sizable lead in the AFC North division. So, but good talking ball with you, Adam.
Yes, excited to do a little bit more of it, Noah. You have moved over from the Pirates beat and more of an enterprise role. So we're having you, on the Steelers channel a lot more frequently. You'll be doing Tuesdays with Ray Fittipaldo moving forward. So subscribe for Noah. Subscribe for Jerry and Ray, who will be coming to you from the field at Acrisure Stadium in a little bit. We'll get that recording up as soon as we can. Christopher Carter and Ray Fittipaldo will be back on Monday with the North Shore Drive. I'll be back next week with hopefully Paul Zeiss for the post-game show. So lots coming your way. Subscribe there. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Help us out in the YouTube algorithm. We always appreciate that. And please check out our written coverage at post-gazette.com and consider a subscription there. Signing off this evening for the Post-Gazette Steelers post-game show. I'm Adam Bittner, joined by Noah Hiles. Good night.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.